Will AI make us less free than we are now? It is an interesting question, and the answer is fairly complicated. What does that actually mean? How will this impact our freedoms? Well, that has an easier answer. We think we are free in our way of thinking, speaking, and doing, but actually, we are not. AI can successfully predict our next purchase, next move, and soon our next thought. And if that doesn't scare you, I do not know what will. Are a social credit system and constant real-time surveillance next? Artificial intelligence has become increasingly common in our lives, both in the private and public spheres, in both big and small ways. Machine learning technologies influence the advertisements you see on Facebook and the paths you take to work. They may also make choices regarding your health treatment and immigration status. Government agencies at the local and federal level are exploring, and in many cases already using automated tools to allocate resources and monitor people. This raises significant civil rights and civil liberties concerns. Next to that, AI has shown over and over again that it becomes racist and sexist when it's trained on making decisions on people with different ethnic backgrounds and different sexes. Researchers do not seem to have figured out why this keeps on happening. In some places, police are deploying officers and surveillance tools based on artificial intelligence predictions. The Trump administration intended to work with Silicon Valley to develop a system that would mine foreigners' social media profiles to determine who might be a threat. An algorithm in one of America's states decides which children are at danger of abuse. You can possibly see the implication on our privacy in these examples. Now, in order for such systems to work, it needs data to be trained on. And I'm not talking about a couple of identities or just a subset of the subjects in a test. No, in fact, I'm talking about tons and tons of identities or loads of social media profiles that are scraped off of the internet in order for such a system to be properly trained. This is done on a continual basis, and frequently we've seen companies being fined for selling their data to the bigger conglomerates in the world, which they had no specific consent for from the unwitting users. Worse, such algorithms are often cloaked in secrecy, with no access to external examiners who could test them for bias and make necessary adjustments. People can't successfully contest the choices made by these tools because of the secrecy, which is frequently imposed by private businesses that refuse to disclose their source code. The data and algorithms used to make critical choices about people's lives are merely unavailable to the public. Let's think for a second that they would let you in on their secret developments for this AI and show you all they could do with it. It would be ruled out within days, since no one likes their freedom impacted by a piece of code, which is subjected to a lot of the original creator's design choices. You might wonder how this looks in practice, and we would simply point our fingers to China. China has been experimenting with constant surveillance, a social credit system, and all things interconnected with each other in order to make decisions about their citizens. You ran through a red light? You will be publicly shamed on China's Times Square, your access to public transportation could be blocked, and your WeChat app will be disabled for a given amount of time. The real core of the problem is the unregulated market in which AI engineers train these machines with huge amounts of data. Engineers decide what data to use, how they weigh that data, the type of algorithm to use, and how the decisions can be best formulated. There are a variety of other parameters used to create the model that is accurate and efficient enough to provide valuable insights and decisions. A simple example we all encounter each day would be the Facebook algorithm. It literally observes you on their platform, and whenever you hang around in some Facebook groups about cars, they figure that you are a car enthusiast and show you almost tailor-made ads based on your behavior. This requires a couple of minutes to show up, and it's near real time. A significant problem in this setup is that the AI engineers are usually not the ones who are experts in the field in which the AI will be used. So, for instance, an AI was specifically programmed to predict whether or not a criminal was a repeat offender or not. And guess what? There was a bias towards black criminals, which had a significant higher rate of being repeated offenders, according to the AI. There was no reason to believe that this was actually the case, and yet still, this was the outcome. Well, you could argue, was the training data used a large enough set of repeated offenders, or is an AI engineer biased by default? Did that cause the code and the algorithm to think that way? Ironically, making artificial intelligence is still a human's job, and humans are more biased than ever in the way society is dividing us. Any biases and errors in the data that the engineers use to teach the machine will result in outcomes that reflect those biases. If regulation is the problem solver, that is arguable. You could argue that regulations are made by humans as well. So are we capable enough to spot our biases? As you can tell, this discussion brings forth more questions than answers. Well, that is perhaps a lot to process. To us, this is a legitimate worry, and I hope you learned something new by watching this video. If this was interesting to you, please consider subscribing and see you all in the next video.